Yeah, hi, Steve. Galatians 6:16, as many as walk according to His rule, peace and mercy be upon them and upon the Israel of God. Israel of God, is he speaking of natural Israel or spiritual Israel, which would be the Christians? I'll take
He's,
my answer
okay.
on the. Thanks. Bye
Yeah.
bye.
The Israel of God is a reference to the faithful remnant of Israel. And since Jesus came, the faithful remnant of Israel all followed the Messiah, because you can't be a faithful Israelite and reject the Messiah that God sends. In fact, you couldn't even be a faithful Israelite and reject one of the prophets that God sent, but much less the Messiah. So all the faithful in Israel are followers of the Messiah, and therefore they'd be Jewish Christians. But Paul is not distinguishing between Gentile and Jewish Christians in this book. If he ever did so, this would be a book he would not do so in, because he's made it very clear that in chapter 3, he said, only those who are of faith are the children of Abraham. And then he said at the end of chapter 3, if you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. So it's very clear that Paul in this epistle is saying there's no real distinction at all between Jew and Gentile. So it'd be very strange for him to make a distinction in his greetings. Besides, I was talking to a caller the other day who was asking about this. The word "and" is the word "kai" in the Greek. And the word "kai" can mean and it usually does, but sometimes it means even. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think the King James Version reads it as even. It says, as many as walk according to this rule, peace and mercy be upon them, even upon the Israel of God. So he's saying the Israel of God is just another name for those who walk according to this rule. That is, for those who live by the principle that Paul's describing here. Now, that if he was talking about Gentiles as the first group and Jewish believers as the second, it'd be very weird, because he'd be describing the Israel of God as people who don't walk according to this rule. If the "and" is distinguishing between two groups rather than amplifying on the two groups, then he's got one group are those who live by this rule, and he wishes peace on them. And then there's others, the Israel of God, who apparently aren't described as living by that rule. But Paul made it very clear the rule is the same for Jews and Gentiles, so it'd be very unusual, very inconsistent for Paul to make a distinction in this particular passage between Jewish and Gentile members of the church. And I don't think he was. I believe the Israel of God just is the way he's talking about, the church.